Why, hello, you amazing, beautiful people. How you doing? Welcome back to another Bricky's reaction video. Someone told me that Bricky had already released part 2, so I've come back, and luckily he hasn't, because it'd be good to finish all of part 1 before he re-releases part 2. And if you know what I'm talking about, it's Every Freaking Warhammer Faction Explained. Now, I actually really want to play one of the Warhammer games. I even saw like a clip pop up that looked really good, like really high quality, like a AAA style looking Space Marine game maybe, and that looks really fun. So if I was going to play some of these games, where would be like the best first impression, the best one to start with? Let me know in the comment section down below. But for now, I've missed this guy, man. I've missed this guy. Let's finish these videos. Let's get the rest of these out soon. So if you want to support them, please like, please subscribe. And also shout out Bricky, link to their channels in the description. And let's jump into my first ever reaction to Every Single Warhammer 40k Faction Re-Explained Part 1, Part 2 of Part 1 or something. Let's go. Chaos! Let's go, baby.
The forces of chaos are beings that serve directly under their patron deity. There are 4 current gods of chaos at the moment: Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh. Each of them represent various facets of and emotions of sentient.
I gotta say, he says 4 at the moment. Does he just mean because obviously one of them's new? Or does he mean there could be 5 in the future?
Species and play a great game against one another for total control over their realms. Interestingly enough, while their disciples have physical forms we can understand, the Chaos Gods do not have a physical visual that you can perceive in reality. So while there are tons of fantastic fan art, we do not know what they truly look like, though they are conveniently color-coded. Khorne is the god of blood and murder.
I assumed the fan arts we had seen were like accurate depictions of these gods, and I guess not.
And
kind of cool, actually.
He is the one who is most powered by the wholesale killing of any living thing. For Khorne cares not from where the blood flows. With a sacred number of 8, he is the lord of all things involving killing and blood and gore. The champions are extremely strong as well, with monumental muscles and extremely large weapons. A true analog to Khorne would be his greater demon, the Bloodthirster, an enormous muscle-bound flying devil with an axe so large it splits tanks in a single swing. They move in.
All right, this Bloodthirster guy, he looked pretty fucking cool. He looked pretty fucking cool.
Into battle with armor of brass adorned by the skulls of their foes and pools of freshly spilt blood. This may appear to be quite frightening, of course. Demonic, one might say.
Where's that in front
But in the world of chaos, all emotions feed one of these gods in one way or another. If you were to define Khorne with single words, you would use blood, carnage, murder, skulls. But you'd be missing out on important ones like strength, honor, prowess, courage, and skill. Khorne is not just about the wholesale slaughter of people. He is about the honor and power of martial combat. The true strength there is in besting someone in physical strength and skill. Of course, a murderer would be someone who would feed Khorne, but a soldier could feed Khorne. A martial artist or professional.
Okay, so in a sense, it's kind of Norse in that regard, where Khorne is very much among, like, a fan of the idea of an honorable fight and a strong warrior leading the other warriors. That kind of sort of setting, where in Viking and Norse mythology, in Viking times, you would literally have the strongest warrior leading the clan, right? And you could challenge that leader to a fight. So you beat them, you lead.
Professional fighter could feed Khorne. A warrior, good or bad, feeds Khorne. A diplomat does not. A premier soldier does. A GoFundMe does not. This is what leads many mortals down the path of Khorne, for he will bless those that bring him enough skulls. And in a world this destructive, there are many ways to reap a high tally for him. Prepare the Dreadclaws and unchain the Mad Ones. Glorious battle awaits us today, for the world below has refused to surrender. Let us descend upon them with fury and rage.
Kind of funny how reading this and thinking, who's this? It could literally be like 10 fucking different people in the Warhammer universe. In fact, I'm pretty sure if any single faction goes to a planet, this is the speech they just use. Even the bug dudes.
Giving no quarter and sparing only those warriors who fight well enough to earn a place amongst us. As to the rest, their lives and possessions are ours, but their skulls are for Khorne. Normally, if I ever want to explain Khorne, I just kind of show him this clip.
I'd never stab you in the back, Shepard. Warriors like you and me, straight to the face.
Moving on, Tzeentch is the second god, the god of trickery and
shout out Mass Effect, by the way. Shout out Mass Effect.
Mischief, the changer of ways, the great conspirator and the architect of fate. With a sacred number of 9.
Random tangent about Mass Effect. Mass Effect is one of the only games I know that when you talk to people about Mass Effect, their first introduction to the world of Mass Effect was Mass Effect 2, not Mass Effect 1. Most people I speak to started on 2, then went back to 1, and then 3, or went 2, 3, and 1. But every single person I've ever spoken to started the Mass Effect universe on 2. I imagine a lot of you watching this probably started on 1, but everyone I've ever spoken to, 2.
Tzeentch is truly the god of change in all of its forms, but there is an obvious undercurrent of mischief
like
and
GTA.
cunning.
Most people
Tzeentch
start on
is such
3.
a liar that his pants have gone thermonuclear.
Nice.
Where the f is it?
His favorite pastime is asking questions that have no answers while simultaneously making up answers on the spot to a question he didn't ask.
My wife? What? I mean, that doesn't sound anything like my wife.
Have you ever had a dream that that you want him to do you so much you could do anything?
He is such a conniving little bastard that every emotion of
That is the fucking poster for Critters, and ain't nobody convincing me anything else. You seen Critters? Shout out you.
lying, of scheming, of trickery is a direct way to help feed him. An unfaithful partner, a politician, a spy. All these people feed Tzeentch in one way or another, and it doesn't matter if the intentions are good. Acceptance does not feed Tzeentch. Change does. Tzeentch doesn't care about
Every time
your
I change
facts.
my
He only
trousers.
wants opinions.
So like 5
because
times
he
a day.
represents change, he also represents hope, though. Schemes are not always
That
bad, and even the
That design reminds me so much of a creature from another fucking TV show, game, or movie or something. Can't work out what. This is the one on the back.
hope to make a better tomorrow is the change he seeks. Because he is the architect of fate and the mastery of sorcery, his presence is purely unknowable. Every depiction of a Tzeentchian demon contains more eyes than are necessary and more mouths than I know what to do with. It is a biblically accurate angel if the angel gaslit you into thinking birds are government drones. But are they? The creatures as this
Maybe. Probably. Definitely.
disposal adorn themselves with the knowledge of sorceries
It's like
and the
fucking
unknown,
Skeksis.
all to
the
provide
hell's that thing on the
a
left? Jesus
mind-crushing
Christ.
experience. Fighting
Fuck
demons
me,
from
man.
outside of our reality is difficult enough, but fighting demons from unreality, purposely attempting to trick you, is a
Unreality?
whole new thing
Made up
entirely. And that is
demonic
before we
shit
even
coming
get
at you.
started on the gigantic bird of sorcery you're going to need to face. Do not ask which
Why are we
creature
fighting this
screams in
bird?
the night. Do not question who waits for you in the shadow. It is my cry that wakes you in the night, and my body that crouches in the shadow.
Bro, this is a fucking John Wick speech if I've ever
I
heard one.
am Tzeentch, and you are the puppet that dances to my tune. Third of the Chaos Gods is the one of acceptance of rot and pestilence, the grandfather himself, Papa Nurgle. Nurgle is the exact opposite of Tzeentch. Where Tzeentch believes in change and hope for a future, Nurgle believes in stagnation and the end of everything. At one point or another, we will all decay. We will all rot, and we will all end. And with a sacred number of
Nurgle is, this is one handsome looking dude. Nurgle, you look great. You look great. Really good. Definitely not like a weird zombie version of Slimer from the Ghostbusters. No, you look really good, my friend.
7, every single thing, pestilence, boil, and everything in between, comes under the great shadow and girth of Nurgle himself. For
Girth?
Nurgle, the plight of
that
mortals
Nurgle?
is his fear and wine. And no matter how solid life might be, everything will decay in the end. In the creation of life, there must be an end to that life. And nobody has more creations to end lives than Grandfather Nurgle himself. Every boil, every blemish, every pus-filled wound and disease, every rot, and every plague is
Yeah, you keep listening, Richard. I'm not putting any of that on the screen.
And concocted by Nurgle. This, humorously, keeps Nurgle as a jovial god. He is full of life and laughter, and by creating as many diseases as he possibly can, he shares that joy with mortals. I mean, his envoy...
It's very true. Diseases. That's sheer joy. Everyone knows. So Nurgle's like, what do humans love? And that makes them laugh. Diseases. I'll share my joy with the humans. Why do they all look so sad? Why are none of them laughing? What the fuck is wrong with these people?
Is the great
Don't they love a
unclean
good
one.
disease?
And look at how happy he is. And there's a lot of him to love. A fear of
He does
death
look very happy.
in general is feeding Nurgle. All disease makes him stronger, but to pray for salvation for a wounded loved one is to feed Nurgle. The timeless and inevitable fear that one day you will rot and decay is what gives him strength. The Peloton won't feed Nurgle. Licking the doorknob on a public bathroom certainly does.
Wait, so he just said that to feed Nurgle as well, or whatever. The idea, like the fear of death, will also feed him. So you're telling me it's not just the act of dying, it's also fearing dying.
However, should you embrace your grandfather's gifts, you may find an end to your pain. Maybe. All mortal followers of the Chaos Gods found themselves there in one way or another. Either through direct
just a
worship
god that's
or
like
the
the god of
slow corrupting of
happy
their
times
souls.
and
But
fun.
those that
That's
take
my kind of
Nurgle's
god.
gifts and embrace the decay of their bodies may end up being chosen among his few as a faithful servant. In doing so, you will be free of the pain caused by Nurgle's ailments, and you may even find yourself just as jovial and happy as he is. Maybe.
So just remember, every time you do something gross, you might be going to see a god. Nah, I can word that better. Every time you pick your nose, you're acting godly. Maybe.
Enemies shall wither and
God's
die.
monks.
His allies shall wither and
be gross.
die. The universe and all within it shall wither and die. And when the great corruption has settled over the land and permeated the very foundations of reality itself, then shall the Lord of all rise from the rot and ruin, spread his arms wide to reclaim all of his dutiful children. Those were the three major chaos gods for a very long time.
Could Zergal rot and die? He's a god, right? Doesn't he live forever? Doesn't that kind of defeat the whole point in his shit?
Emboldened by war and death on a galactic scale. Ever present, but now fact on the suffering
One
of
of
a
the
galaxy.
looks kind of chill
One race
compared to the other
for
two.
a while was able to elude the pull of chaos. An advanced race of psychically
ate
attuned
pizza.
aliens
Nice.
whose master over the physical world was so strong that chaos could not glean from them the morsels of power they once had. Or so they couldn't. Not for a long while. 60 million years ago, in an attempt to combat the Necrons in G.O.T, the Old Ones made a new species. One with innate power in the warp and the ability to
Their
harness
helmets,
it with a
man.
mastery
What are
that was
they?
unseen
What are
by
their
so
helmets?
many
It
others.
makes
A
them look
mastery
so not
powerful,
scary.
The Necrons retreated to sleep in order to wait it out. It was no longer a galaxy to be ruled by them, but instead begin the age of the...
I can't even read that.
The
word.
Eldar are a race of pointed-eared
Eldar.
humanoids that are all psychically attuned to the warp. If we're being meta here, these are space elves, and these elves ruled the galaxy in the time the Necrons went to sleep and humanity began to rise.
Let's be honest. Elves, fucking awesome. Space elves, psh, that's just like the invention of peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Eldar's
That's up
empire
there, man.
was galaxy-wide and lasted for longer than any other galactic power that we know
Man, for some
of.
reason,
Their
this is really making me
understanding
watch
of all
Stargate
things was
again.
Exceptional. With every
So good.
single one of them being psychers, they had the ability to master the warp and use it to their advantage. See, being a psyker is basically like being a wizard, or I guess in this case it's more of a sorcerer, since you are born with the gifts as opposed to learning them. In order to utilize your psychic abilities, however, you must then reach into the other dimension, into the warp, into hell for that power. So if you were to say, cast Fireball, your mind would reach into the warp, gather the strength to rewrite reality, to then cast Fireball. Now, you might think to yourself, doesn't that mean if you are opening up a power to the warp, you may create a lot of risk to yourself because of all the...
I'm gonna be honest, I'm getting very distracted by the epic battle that's taking place in the background behind Bricky right now. So I gotta make sure I'm paying attention. Because damn, there was some, did you see that fight? Jesus.
horrible things we just talked about in the warp?
Yeah, they are in there, so you're reaching in better there.
Yes. However, in Warhammer 40k, willpower is a real, tangible thing. In the sense that in its own right, it can be
helmet
weaponized.
is crazy.
Being strong of will means being strong of
might.
soul. And being strong of soul means you can resist the pull of the warp that much more. A more inexperienced psyker opens up a hole into the warp that is large. And that hole widens to get more power, allowing evil things to get in. A powerful psyker is able to open a very small hole, but with immense force to get the same amount of power with less risk. The Eldar are master psychers. Every single one of them can call upon the warp, and over millions of years they have perfected it so much so that they can weave structures out of it. In some species in the galaxy, they utilize the warp itself for interstellar travel. The Eldar ain't having any of that noise. How about we utilize a fancy alternative mode of travel that is substantially safer than the old ones created called the Webway? What about dying? Miss me with that. We no longer age. And if we do, we can just be reborn like that. Food, water, materials, we make things out of distilled warp essence itself. We sing unreality into cathedrals to dine in. What truly could the Eldari Empire possibly fear?
It's actually fucking insane. When, like, the more I learn about the Eldar, the more you realize they just had everything. Like, they didn't need to use the warp, like, to fucking travel like so many other people. They had their own system. They were, like, safe. They'd mastered their minds. It was like they were literally the hopes of the damn galaxy, the universe. And then they got bored, and much like everybody when they get bored, they make mistakes. They not on this level though. This is up there.
The Eldari Empire's biggest fear was themselves.
Yeah.
The society so perfect they wanted for naught, and this led them down dark and dangerous paths. When the base functions of society are no longer a problem for you, you tend to
get bored.
Experiment. Perhaps the medium rare steak on your plate would be better if it was elf meat. Hey, I'm not saying we should make cannibalism legal, but like, what's the issue with a little taste? Violent sports is one thing, but how come we don't do sports to the death? I mean, I'm just saying, like, if both participants are willing and clear about it, like, what really is the problem there, you know? Art is in the eye of the viewer, and what is
do you think this would actually happen? Because I don't think it would. But then again, one thing I don't know if you guys are noticing as well, is empathy has definitely diminished a lot over the last, like, 5 years. Like, I'd say when I was younger, empathy was quite strong. You know, politicians were quite, like, political. But the world wasn't, like, one thing is the world wasn't so focused on politics now. I feel like everyone's so hyper-focused. People make politics their personality. It's very bizarre. But what I'm basically trying to say is I feel like because of that change in society and how social media exposes us to everything, and I know I sound like a grandpa here, but I actually think empathy is one of the things we have randomly gone down in significantly recently. And I think it's one of the most important emotions a human can have. And I think the world is starting to lack it a little bit. Could lead to shit like this.
Considered art is completely up to the concept of one's own interest. A canvas adorned with the blood of a man wronged is truly the visual poetry that our society needs. Hedonism. Yes. With a slow and consistent hedonism, the Eldar slid backwards.
If you do a slow and consistent hedonism for like a couple of good hours, you can get really good roast chicken.
Into debauchery of the sort I cannot discuss on this YouTube video. Murder on stage, delicacies and drugs distilled from one another, the trade of slaves and concubines.
That guy looks like he's waiting for some hobbits to turn up with a ring.
Much worse. The Eldar physiology has their emotions heightened, and they can feel more than a human does. So while it can provide lows of pure despair, it can also provide greater highs than you have ever known. And swinging between the two of them was the Eldar game. The warp took notice of this heavily. and it began to react. On a galactic scale, the debauchery and the hedonism of the Eldar race caused levels of warp storm so pronounced and so volatile that it cut off interstellar travel for all those who used it. Communications between planets was removed, and a nightmarish era of old night began. This continued for thousands.
It's one of the coolest stories in Warhammer, I think, because it's just like, it's just a descent into absolute fucking insanity that was so crazy it summoned a new god. It's very cool.
Hundreds of thousands of years. The Eldar all but removed from the problems being caused as they entered heights of more and more ecstasy. They needed more and more and more. Nothing was ever enough. More murder, more torture. It's art, it's delicacy.
Did these guys have jobs? I'm just wondering. Like, did you go to the, like, was it like you wake up, brush your teeth, go to the office, clock out at 5, go to your debauchery club, chop up some people, do some fucked up stuff, go home and sleep? Or was it more like, wake up, fuck up, fuck up, fuck up, fuck up, go to sleep? And like, did they work?
It's life. This silence offends Slaanesh. Wait. Slaanesh, the prince of pleasure, she who thirsts, the god of unspeakable excess, is our fourth chaos god with the sacred number of 6 adorning their title. Slaanesh is a bit of a tricky one, because with our other 3 chaos gods, there was a certain understanding of human emotions and desires, but for Slaanesh, that desire is how they get their power. The words to be used would be decadence, pleasure, perfection, passion, excess, and many others. The pursuit of more, the want to do more, experience more, become more. That's what gives Slaanesh.
I'm gonna be honest, some of Slaanesh's stuff I listen to and I'm like, you know what? Some of this sounds quite fine. And it's like when you watch some, like, how do I word this diplomatically? You know when you say they went too far? That's Slaanesh. You're looking at a situation like, that's deserved. Yep, that's deserved. All right, maybe a bit too much now. All right, maybe you should stop. All right, you're going too far. Like, that's Slaanesh. It's like, there's parts of it I'm like, cool. Then I'm like, you know what? Maybe I don't want to go in this room.
Slaanesh their gifts. A lot of people
is that
believe
weird
that Slaanesh
dragon
is something that originates with
behind?
Sex, specifically. And it makes sense why they...
I love the way he said sex there. He, like, couldn't have said it more like, yeah, sex. Guys, there's this thing, I don't know if you've heard of it. Sex. Shh.
That Slaanesh is something that originates with sex, specifically. And it makes sense why they assumed that. The visuals of Slaanesh patrons are all very lithe and sexual, but they are also intentionally androgynous to appear attractive to a variety of intrigues. However, to think that Slaanesh specifically derives from sex would be mistaken. While it is true that a lot of humanity's actions can relate to getting laid, and Slaanesh is the dark prince of desire, it's more on the lines of feeling an excess of an emotion. It is excessive touch and scent and desire, and a lot of that has to do with sex. That's why it looks like sex, but it's more than just that. A patron of the arts may feed Slaanesh, one that aspires to become the perfect chef or master of their craft, and the sheer pursuit.
When I imagine the perfect chef, looks just like that.
Of that alone will feed Slaanesh. Whiplash
looks like the guy
is Slaanesh's absolute favorite film. Videos where people beat Elden Ring on a dance pad feed Slaanesh.
There are no 2 words in the English language more harmful than good job.
But is there a line?
No, man, no.
This also moves into the concept of feeling. Sensation is a majorly...
I can think of a lot of 2 words more. I don't know. Maybe it's because Whiplash is American. I'm just saying, as a British person, you give me 2 words, I'll paint you a rainbow. I'm just saying. The only people that can go with us, Australia. Right now, the Australians watching this are going, 2 words? Motherfucker, I need 1 word.
Slaanesh-coded thing. It might start off feeling good, but then you get to play around a little bit, you know? You play with a little bit of pain. Light pain might not be enough, so you might want more. Or inflicting the pain could be your jam. Music can increase to
like when you go on an
volumes that
itch
may
and
hurt
you're
your
scratching,
ears.
it feels
Even
good.
then, that
Same thing.
might not be enough. More You must have more. Many of the disciples of Slaanesh.
It's kind of crazy. You know what? There is a crazy world where something like dumbed down like this is actually a genius idea. The idea of releasing an album that the more people enjoy it, like it's like without like how to do this. So because this is literally what the world is. You release an album, more people do it, more people enjoy it, more people buy it, more money it makes, right? But that on more like a religious scale. The more people enjoy it, the more people like it, the bigger that album is, the more emotions are made from it, and that is somehow monetary. Does that make sense? Kind of like an idea like that in a way, you know? The idea of the more effort you put into something to create this item that brings pleasure out of people, the more pleasure that's going to create that can then be used from anything, from a video game, a song, or anything. I don't know if I made sense there.
You must have more. Many of the disciples of Slaanesh carry a demonic form in their lithe grace. The keeper of secrets is his chosen envoy, and their movements are a blur of dance and pain with an aura all the more fatal. They dance and sing, but there's always a form
look at that fucking thing in the background, man. It's
an alluring gaze that will pull you in right before the demonic entity can crush you in that grip. Slaanesh's palace has 6 layers surrounding it, and one of them is the excess of gluttony, where the participant finds themselves in a beautiful banquet full of the most delicious foods imaginable. Tables of delicacies and rivers of wine tempt the user to such a degree that they cannot stop stuffing their face, unaware that the things they are eating.
So, Slaanesh, get laid, eat loads of food, feel good. This sounds awful. I'd never want this in my life.
Very vaguely familiar meat. If one does not see themselves drowning in the river of wine, they may soon fill their bodies up so much that they cease to function and fall over, becoming part of the banquet themselves. That is one of these 6 layers of Slaanesh's palace. This was the ecstasy that the Eldar civilization indulged in for millennia, and did so at a monumental scale that they created a god from it. Find pleasure in every moment, indulge in every whim, let lesser races feel the burden of their crude lives. We are beyond such concerns or worries. Every power is ours to use, every sensation ours to experience. We are truly masters of the galaxy, and all others exist owing to satisfy
Was this just happening all day, every day?
We have earned our position.
They never had a day off.
Power.
Let us
They're
just
forever
doing this
taste
shit
the fruits
24/7.
of such achievement.
They never want to just go watch a movie, have a McDonald's.
Is ours to command. We are eternal. With the birth of Slaanesh, the Eldari Empire ceased to be. A catastrophic event so horrible.
By the way, I hate that word. I'm not even going to say it because I hate it. The G-O-O-N word. I don't know why it's become a thing. I think it's fucking stupid. You will never catch me saying that shit.
The warp ripped a hole permanently in our reality. A fissure forever known as the Eye of
I still don't fully
With
even know what it
means. With the sudden inhalation of this god's largest breath, the Eldari souls are a currency to be now collected by she who thirsts. Trillions of Eldar died in an instant. Slaanesh gorging on their souls to satisfy his palate.
How did they die?
99%
of their like I'm sitting here and I died. How did I die? I explode like
worse than death.
Thanos style.
For Slaanesh now stakes a claim on each and every Eldar soul. From the moment they pass on, an eternity of torment awaits them. The remaining Eldar devote their entire lives to stopping this eventuality. Their dying race so devoted to saving themselves from the Dark Prince, and in doing so, have found very creative ways. In the modern world of Warhammer, the Craftworld Eldar are the main force of Eldar in the galaxy and represent the elf style that many think of when you think elves in space. Fantasy elves in space, not those elves. We'll get to them. A craft world is a monumentally large starship, the size of a continent, that acts as a form of flotilla. During the highest reaches of hedonism, many Eldar saw the demonic writing on the wall and began to try and seek asylum from their own debauchery. Those Eldar left.
It's actually nuts when you think about this, because they owned galaxies and stuff like that. They don't seem to be like a man. It's really making me want to play Mass Effect 3 again. They really don't seem. What was the one when like the fucking Reapers were taking over planets? Like, what I'm trying to say is, like, they owned galaxies, they controlled galaxies. So what, like millions or billions of Eldar escaped and just fucked off? When you think about that in the grand scheme of things, that is such a big number. But in the grander scheme of things, it's a tiny number, and it's crazy that many was able to slip off and barely be noticed.
On monumental craft worlds.
Oh, how many escaped? Just 5 billion? Ah, nothing.
And saved themselves from Slaanesh's awakening. The main thing the Craftworld Eldar seek is to temper their minds and bodies in a way that will never allow them to slide back into their old ways. The representation they carry is that of a more feudal Japanese motif. Eldar follow paths as they age. The path of the warrior, the seer, the poet, the diplomat, the bone singer, and so on. These paths are a strict code of conduct to hone the heightened Eldar psychology down a school of thought and action. And if it sounds a hell of a lot like Bushido, well, you're damn right. Here's a medal and a soul stone. Don't lose it or an eternity of torment awaits you. Going through these paths will allow you to take up not just a role in Eldar society, but
these
keep
dudes
your
with the
mind
weird helmets again. So the Eldar are the weird helmet
guys. Every Eldar is technically a psyker.
However,
very few of them actually utilize
like
their psychic powers for fear of tempting she who thirsts. A large amount of emphasis is also put on ancestors of the Eldar and learning from them the farther you go down a path. This can sometimes be seen by the large variety of jewels adoring the armor of Eldar. Those are called soul stones, the biggest middle finger to Slaanesh they can think of. See, when an Eldar dies, these stones act as a backup, and instead of their souls going to Slaanesh, they are then trapped and stored in this little stone. So when the Eldar say they commune with their ancestors, they mean so very literally, as the spirit and soul of generations before them are stored here. Often, larger structures may contain vast amounts of soul stones, such as the Infinity Circuit in the Craftworld itself, allowing the souls of the dead to help power their enormous starship. The young do not desire the discipline of the path.
That's actually fucking genius. So they know that when they die, they're doomed. They're going to the worst prison anyone's ever been to forever. So the idea is basically, I'm not going there, I'm over here. They suck out those souls, and just look after them. But then they said they're using them as fuel? How does that work?
But rather, their curiosity drives them to try every fruit from the tree. Thus, it is that so many take the path of wandering or the path of damnation in their first years of adulthood. And so, the great tragedy of our kind is played out again and again as the number of our people shrink from generation to generation. These paths, when completed, allow an Eldar to move to the next one, then the next one. However, since this is the grim darkness of the world, many of these paths rely on combat. The Eldar actually had gods at one point. Cain, Vol, Isha, Azaryan, and so on. These gods are aspects of the Eldar pantheon, and while
inside joke I don't know about
in Slaanesh's creation, their teachings live on. For some, the strongest devotion to the Eldar gods is to join the Aspect Warriors and embody the wrath of Cain, their god of war. While guardians of the Eldar craftworlds are more
the design is so random,
militia,
isn't it?
The Aspect Warriors embody
it's like traditional aliens, but then
the path.
You know, they kind of remind me of the fucking blue helmet dudes from Mass Effect now I think about it. It's like your traditional alien, but also a soldiered version. Like a tool, like a literally like, you know, actually, like what's been said, it's an elf version of a traditional alien.
Are led by a Phoenix Lord, a name passed down from generations and embodying the souls of prior Phoenix Lords with each new one. The Howling Banshees, led by Jane Czar, Fugin and his Fire Dragons, Baharoth and his Swooping Hawks, or Malgan Ra and his Dark Reapers. Each aspect shrine carries with it the Eldar way of war. Fast, hard-hitting, and incredibly tricksy, for they do not have the numbers to fight in any other way. The Craftworld Eldar show how mangled an empire can be by their own actions. They once ruled the galaxy
nuts how a
in
destroyed
an honest,
empire like the Eldar
way, but in
still
the
looks
end,
incredible.
they were bested by themselves, and their most prominent remnants are forced to drift aimlessly through the galaxy, trying to save their species from extinction and resist the temptations of she who thirsts. But for some, the party, it's just beginning.
How long is this next part? How long is this next part? Is there chapters on this? I just want to know, because we're going to... I think this one goes on for a while. Let me have a look. What's this? You know what? We'll finish this part, actually. We'll finish this part. I'm basically trying to find a good stopping point. But because this is the evil version of the Craftworld Eldar, you know? The Drukhari, is that how I say them? I feel like it would make sense for us to watch this in the same video. Otherwise, it's going to be a bit bizarre. Like, it makes more sense to watch this and then finish on the next part. So I was trying to find a good stopping point.
Deep within the webway is the city of Khorne. This
links too heavily to the Eldar to just break up
in
like
the
this.
webway that allowed for ease of transport for the Eldar between its various domains.
So this is the I'm still really horny, guys.
Meant that it needed to be a bit more of a neutral territory outside of the jurisdiction of general Eldar law, and therefore it was allowed to self-govern. This did not go well. The Dark City became the hideaway for all manner of sin. The Eldar race slipped into debauchery on a galactic scale.
I love it. It's like, this didn't go well.
And this was the city you went to when that wasn't enough for you. The convenience of being so deep within the webway was that it exists as a blind spot to the horrors of the warp. So while the rest of the Eldar fled the downfall of their species, Khorne kept partying. When Slaanesh was birthed, they were saved the worst of it.
The weird thing is, so when Slaanesh was buffed, was it literally like a nuke going off? And it was like an instantaneous, whoosh, if you're in this radius, you die. And so only people outside of that radius or in the fucking warp or whatever it was were escaped from
Thanks to them being nice and neatly tucked away inside the webway. But only somewhat. The Dark Prince did not have a grip around their soul, but the tiniest pinky finger, and they were still pulling. But due to their excess hedonism, they found a solution to this problem. If they tormented others, they could temporarily rejuvenate their souls and continue to cheat their inevitable death by placating the Prince of Pleasure. And if they kept this up on the regular, they could effectively become immortal. Thus,
like blood for the blood god, but instead sex for the sex god.
Unlike the more stoic elves you see in works of fiction, the Drukhari themselves exist as a sort of analog of the more grim and
Is this the faction he said would be the worst ones to have come to your planet?
The Drukhari are soul vampires, but the more basic means to feed are hardly enough to keep them going. This desire to feed is known as
he looks a lot like
and to quench it effectively, they have
elf from Lord of the Rings, his name I've forgotten,
of biotechnology and dark sciences to really juice themselves up on the crispy soul sprite from the vending machine called the Galaxy. The majority of Drukhari act as pirates and raiders and slavers. They go into our physical reality and drag people back to Khorne to commit atrocities that go beyond any imaginative torture a human can think of. The Drukhari are organized in various groups throughout the Dark City to accomplish this in a more organized and extremely brutal way. The Cabals act as the main warriors of the city, led by their archons. Witches and succubi act as entertainment for Khorne in gladiatorial arenas, and the flesh-crafting homunculus keep the Drukhari alive and discover ever increasingly more painful ways to torment their
That is fucked. Jesus Christ, looks like a dude from hell.
Ever increasingly large supply of slaves they are brought. The Dark Eldar see the other inhabitants of the galaxy as little more than cattle, livestock that can be brought to bay or slaughtered at any time. Their fodder, however, is not meat and muscle, but the anguish and despair of the weak. The Dark Eldar do indeed drink blood, but also tears, and most sustaining of all, the raw essence of pain they wring out of their captives. The truth of the matter is that Drukhari sustain themselves on the suffering of others, not just morally, but physically. Khorne is a city rife with backstabbing schemes and murder. It is the worst back alleys of the worst ghettos at the best of times. Nothing is more horrifying to a Drukhari than death, for death will see them in the talons of Slaanesh for an eternity of torment. So they do everything they can to stop this. The homunculi covens
So essentially, they don't want to die because they don't want what they are inflicting. It's that simple. They go around inflicting the worst shit ever because they know if they die, they're gonna have the worst shit ever inflicted on them. If anything, they're just giving Slaanesh a nice blueprint of shit to use on them when they eventually die.
Grow dead members from pieces of flesh as bargaining chips. The succubi create grisly gladiatorial spectacles that literally rejuvenate the audience members as captives are murdered for sport. To be captured by the Drukhari is one of, if not the worst fate imaginable in the world of Warhammer 40k. In a universe built on war crimes, they are the most debased war crimers of all time. To be tortured and sacrificed in the gladiatorial arenas is a blessing, for you have escaped the fate of being in the fleshsmith's control group, or being turned into a living and breathing piece of furniture for an Archon's quarters. In a cruel twist of fate, a newly born Drukhari does not arrive into this world loving torture. It is something they must grow to love. Grow to appreciate the suffering of other beings in order to survive in the world they have been brought into. If they succeed, they become some of the worst monsters in the known galaxy.
Imagine, do you know what? It must not look that good. Imagine going into someone's living room and every piece of furniture is just like a naked person. I'm gonna be honest, it would look pretty awful. That's some shit decoration there. I think just a standard-ass normal sofa would probably look better.
Dark reflection to the Craftworlders and a taste of what Eldar society was like before the fall. If they do not succeed, they must find purchase elsewhere. Often those will join smaller parts of Eldar society,
so the Dark Eldar
the Exodites
really
or the Harlequins. Exodites believe in a pre-industrial variant of their society, often retreating to more lush worlds to ride dinosaurs and live off the land. Prehistoric style that I would normally laugh at if they weren't riding dinosaurs like ballers. The Harlequin dancing troupe are a subsect of Eldar that are...
So they're basically living the video game arc. That's cool.
More than just a little strange. A carnival of dancing jesters that serve the Eldar laughing god of Khorne. They arrive never when expected and leave just as quickly. Blurs of light carry their footsteps as they dance their foes into a grave. Combat is just as much of a joke as it is a play on bloody murder. They travel and aid many other Eldar and sometimes even humanity for reasons we can never understand. Perhaps one day we would have, were they not stripped of their army book and folded into the Eldari Codex. So I suppose it'll have to stay a mystery, or maybe it was one of Khorne's master plans to get back at she who thirsts and save their species. Who could know? Perhaps it was all a sick and practical joke to Khorne, and he would just find it very funny to watch me fumble the discussion of one human on a tiny blue planet across the galaxy. Oh, speaking of.
Well, I think we can all agree that's a pretty banging place to stop, right? That's a pretty good spot to stop there, I would say. So, the Eldar are one of my most intriguing factions because I like the random good guy faction. Well, good guy faction, you know, good in Warhammer is still evil anywhere else. The random faction. I can't remember if we've already been spoken about them. That random alien faction that just like got added. It's not the Eldar, but yeah. So the Eldar are or is it the Eldar? It might be the Eldar, actually. I'm not sure. What's that random alien faction that people say seems a bit out of place in the Warhammer universe? But yeah, I don't think it is the Eldar. I'm losing my mind. I'm just going around in circles. Yeah, I'm gonna be real. The Dark Eldar or whatever they're called, the Drukhari or whatever. I don't know what the fuck they're called. Those guys. Yeah, man. Although on paper, the idea of a god that's all about nakedness and cheekiness and enjoying your stuff, that sounds alright. That sounds alright. Someone said to me about that, I'd be like, you know what, that sounds kind of cool. I kind of like that idea. That sounds fun. And then they go, well, what about this? What about this? I'm like, no, I don't. It's like I've ordered a pizza. I want a pizza. And then someone just keeps adding sides to my order. And I'm like, I don't want any sides. And someone just adding toppings to my pizza. I don't want any of these toppings. And they keep adding toppings. And there's more toppings. And they've ruined my pizza. That's the same thing. It's like, on paper, on the base level, this sounds good. But there's a lot here. I'm not going to be honest. No, it sounds pretty bad. It makes me not really want the base level. Maybe I'm just going to keep walking. I like the Eldar story, though. I find it really cool and messed up that they were so freaking deprived, or whatever the word is, that they made a god. Yeah, which then proceeded to destroy all of them. It's literally like so hoisted on your own petard. It's actually crazy. But yeah, I do like them. And now we move on to the Imperium of Man. Which, let's be honest, this is one of the cooler ones. It's very rare that in a universe the humans are more cool than the aliens. Like, let's be honest, aliens are really cool. But I would say in Warhammer, I love the humans in the worst way. Like, they are so messed up. Their story is so wild and crazy. I love learning about the humans. I really want to learn more about all of the factions as well. And the freaking Space Marines are something I just find so damn freaking fascinating. Anyway, it's very cool. So yeah. I guess that's it for today, my friends. I hope you enjoyed my reaction to every single Warhammer 40k Faction Explained, Part 1, Part 2, whatever you want to call it. Link to the video is in the description, so go support Bricky if you haven't seen the original already. And if you like these reactions and you want more and you want them quicker, press that like button, press that subscribe button. Have a great day, and as always, my friends, you will see me in the next video.